Hello, everyone. I hope that this is a good amount of volume. I think we're having a good size group of Iraqi students coming in right now. They're going to be joining us shortly, but I think we're just going to go ahead and start because we want to be respectful for your time. Hi, my name is Nami Bagirimbano. I work at the Sponsored Students and Special Programs Office within Graduate School and International Education. So Global Democracy Ambassador Scholarship Program, that's the program that we wanted to introduce because Anna is on that scholarship program right now, which is the program that is administered by Institute of International Education. It is co-chaired by many social change makers from different fields, including Jose Andres. He's the Spanish chef and then humanitarian activist. It's a wonderful program, and we're so excited to be part of this program to have Anna on campus during the summer. So this program really gives an opportunity and a platform for leader students like Anna to continue their studies even during the conflict. And we trust that those students will continue to promote peace in the community and beyond. And Anna is here with us, and we're very, very thankful for everyone's who got involved with the scholarship experiences for her. Before moving on to presentation, I wanted to acknowledge and thank a few partners today. Cynthia and Clark from International Students and Scholars Office, and Josie and Nate from the University Housing, Holcombe Hall, and Senator Leddins. Thank you so much for coming to join us during your busy time. He's here to facilitate some of the conversations on democracy. And then we have support from Graduate School and International Education, Dean Paul. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And Trevor, Natalia, and Greta from Hugs from Friends. It's a nonprofit organization who connects kids between Ukraine and the US through artwork. And then we have a great number of Ukrainian community members today to support this program. So again, thank you everyone for joining us this evening for this presentation. And I'm going to give this microphone to Nate because he can introduce about this program in Holcombe Hall.
Hi everybody, I'm Nate. I'm the graduate assistant for Holcombe Hall. So this is Global Series. It's a housing signature program that we host every couple of weeks where we allow international students and students who have studied abroad to share their experiences with the countries that they have been. And tonight we have Anna with Ukraine. But yeah, I'll go ahead and get us started with Senator Ledding.
All right. Thank you, Nate. As he said, I am Greg Ledding. I'm the state senator for District 30, just covers Fayetteville. I'm also a 2001 graduate of the University of Arkansas, so it's always great to be here on campus. And I'm both humbled and honored to have been asked by Anna and Nami to participate this evening. I was asked to give my brief thoughts on democracy, and that's a lot to talk about briefly, but I'm not the most long-winded, and I know we are far more interested in Anna's presentation, so I will be brief. But thinking about this today, it occurs to me that for a lot of Americans, myself included, our attention spans are pretty short. We don't always have the best sense of history. And so I think a lot of us fail to appreciate just how young our democracy is here. And certainly we have famously stumbled several times along the way. But nevertheless, I think for far too many people in this country, they see democracy as just the water that comes out of their faucet. It's just there, it just works. They rarely, if ever, have any reason to believe that it's not going to. They don't stop to think about all of the work that goes into maintaining the infrastructure that provides that instant access to safe water when they need it, when they want it. But obviously someone had to identify that source of water, figure out how to clean it, how to put in place the infrastructure to distribute that water and work to maintain and keep that supply safe. But again, for a lot of people, it's just there and it just works until it doesn't. And I think before the 2016 election here in our country, still a lot of people just assumed that regardless of the outcome of an election here in our country, the water would generally just continue to flow. You might not like the candidate that won, but things would generally continue to work and we would move on. There would never be really any danger to democracy. But I think that election showed us that that's not the case because it put in power someone who at best seemed indifferent to the institutions and norms that protect democracy, and at worst seemed determined to dismantle that. I will say there are certainly norms and institutions, again, that were put in place long ago and weren't necessarily ever intended to serve everybody. Clearly, we have work to do, and so occasionally democracy does need a hammer taken to it. But you do need to have respect for those underlying principles and work to maintain those norms that keep a proper check on the system so that democracy continues to function and function for everybody. Here in Arkansas, I've been elected, I was first elected in 2010, so my first term was 2011. I was first elected to the Arkansas House. That was the most recent term in which Democrats had the majority. They had held the majority for more than 140 years. That kind of one-party control isn't really healthy for anybody. But obviously in 2012, my Republican colleagues won control of the legislature and they've added to their lead in the General Assembly ever since, to the point that I'm now part of a superminority. And my Republican friends control both chambers of the legislative branch and the governor's office, just as Democrats did very recently. There was only one brief period in our state's history where the parties were relatively balanced, and it was that 2013 session when the landscape was first beginning to shift. Republicans had captured control of both chambers of the General Assembly, but the margins were very narrow. In fact, it was 51 to 49 in the House, and we still had a Democratic governor. And all we managed to do that session was expand Medicaid, which is without question the most important thing I've been a part of during my time in office. And that's something that would have never happened here, but for the fact that both parties had to work together and find a way to compromise. And unfortunately, though plenty of bipartisan work does still happen in the General Assembly down in Little Rock, I'm still able to pass meaningful legislation as a member of the minority. It is harder, and I can only do it in part because I've been there so long and have taken the time to develop relationships and have the institutional knowledge to do so. But to even get our input considered on some of the bigger policy considerations is all but impossible. And I think that's a shame because I think regardless of who's in power, we should all be working together to serve the best interests of all. And unfortunately, again, even though there's still plenty of good bipartisanship in our state capital, you increasingly see leaders who are actively stoking polarization by demonizing basically half the state. And I don't think that's good for anybody, because I really think we're all better served when we are working for the best interests of everybody. But it takes a lot of work. I've heard it, I think everybody's probably heard the expression that democracy is not a spectator sport. At the very least we can all do is be informed voters and make sure we know the candidates that we're voting for. But again, right now, democracy here in Arkansas, just the way that the systems we put in place to support our democracy have deep flaws. You look at the primary system that is basically built to keep the majority party in power, just as it clearly did for the Democrats for almost a century and a half. It is now very difficult to overcome an obstacle like that. We obviously have seen also attempts to make it harder for people to vote. We also in the legislature don't make it that easy to track and follow what we are doing, which, people have busy lives. It can be difficult to follow the work, but it is so important that we all do what we can to be informed and participate actively in democracy in order to keep it going, or it could slip away because it is a much more fragile thing than we think. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anna for her presentation because I think that is why we are all here this evening. Anna?
Welcome everyone. So I'm Anna Kovalchuk, and today I will give a presentation about the universal struggle for freedom and unity, Ukraine's fight. Thank you so much, Center Leding, for introducing me, and thank you all for being here. It's really important for me and for Ukraine also, and thank you so much for your support. So, introduction. In Ukraine, we would say "Вітаю," which means welcome and hello at the same time. And I'm Ukrainian. I was a global Ukraine exchange student in the US, in Wisconsin. I also was an Erasmus Plus exchange student in Austria, which is a European exchange program. I am a young European ambassador, so I'm in a close cooperation with the European Union. I'm a global democracy ambassador, which is the program that I'm here right now and with which I'm connected and giving presentation to you. European Union Study Days Eco-Literacy Project. That's a project that me and my amazing team created to educate Ukrainian students about ecology, environment, what is happening right now, and what is connection between environment and economy. And also USA and Ukraine volunteer. So volunteering has a special place in my heart. Before war, I would volunteer in Ukraine to help different orphanages in my city. And after the war started, a lot of people would go from the occupied regions to my city, which is Odessa. And we would collect different needed things for them. And also here in US, I would volunteer in different events. And maybe you heard of the NCUR research program. And also I would volunteer in Boys and Girls Club back in Wisconsin. So just a few words more. My city in Ukraine, it's called Odessa, and it's a harbor city. So it has the sea, it has a lot of infrastructure, and this is what we will talk a bit more later. Right now, I just want to quickly answer the question, why it all made me passionate about democracy, why am I standing here, why am I presenting? Yes, just a second. So, as a participant of so many programs and of so many initiatives, I can for sure say that now democracy, development, and growth, which is also a big part of democracy, are a big part of me. And sharing this with all the people to influence this development and this growth for other people, this is one of my main goals right now. And for the goals overall that I'm thinking of, it's contribute back to my community and society, promote cultural understanding and tolerance, which is extremely important in the world we're living in right now, and inspire others to embrace diversity and become global citizens. If you think right now, nearly every country in the world is diverse to some extent. Some less, some more. However, we have different cultures in each country, and that is why it's extremely important to be tolerant towards those countries and embrace this diversity. Foster cross-cultural communication. This is extremely important aspect of overall communication right now in the modern world. And empower young students in Ukraine and US through mentorship and leadership initiatives. This is I would love to do. I love sharing my experience. I love sharing the things that could help some people. So right here, you can see where Ukraine is located. It's right there. And this is where we are right now, quite far. It took me around 10 hours to get here by plane. However, it was an amazing trip and an amazing experience. And this is where Ukraine is located on the European map. We can see that it's located in the Eastern European region. So just a few facts about Ukraine. What is that country and why we're talking about? So Ukraine, the capital of Ukraine is Kiev, and population of Ukraine is 43.8 millions. It's the data from 2021. However, right now we cannot tell for sure the exact population. Ukraine is often addressed as a breadbasket of Europe because Ukraine is one of the main exporters of crops all over the world. That's why it's such popular for this case. And in Ukraine, there is a geographic center of Europe. It's located in the western Ukraine, right in the mountains. And Ukraine is the largest country in Europe, actually. It's just slightly smaller than Texas. So there are two important dates in our history. One of them is our Independence Day, which is on 24th of August, 1991. Year 1991, this is a year when USSR dissolved and stopped existing, and Ukraine became a sovereign country. And there is another year, 882. Ukraine used to be a Kiev Rus a long time ago. And this was the first mentioning of Ukraine and basically the date when Ukraine started existing. So, I'm sorry. We'll quickly skip. So we will talk about why is independence important and why we talk about it so much, why we celebrate this day. And there are a few aspects of it. And one of those aspects is self-determination and sovereignty. So when the country becomes its own country, and the important thing is the cultural identity. And I believe that it's an extremely important aspect of every culture overall because for our example, Ukraine has a really big culture, a long culture as it dates to a lot of years ago. And protecting territorial integrity and national borders, which is extremely up to date thing right now, and upholding human rights and civil liberties for citizens. All the citizens should be free to have their own rights, to express their own opinion, and to have their own thoughts, and ensuring decisions align with national interests and values. This is a topic that's been with Ukraine for a long time. This is an important topic since sometimes government interest doesn't align with the interest of people living in the country. And having this independence makes sure so that people are heard, people of the country are heard, their ideas are heard, and their ideas are followed. So right now I want to just show a few pictures of Ukraine. This is our landscapes, our mountains, Black Sea, and also this pink lake is located on the south of Ukraine. So this is also our architecture, and those are one of the beautiful architectural buildings in different cities: Kiev, Lviv, Cherkasy, and Odessa, which is my city. And right now I want to show those pictures. Those pictures, this event happened just a few days in Odessa, in my city. Just overall about my city. This is a sea city. Right now, we are thinking there's around 2 million inhabitants there. And my city has always been a city through the port, which Ukrainian grain was exported. And right now, Russia made Ukrainian grain as another weapon, as our harbor is being shelled. All the supplies are being shelled, and we are not able to export these grains right now, and they're just being destroyed. So this is another weapon, and the consequences may be extremely big, as the global market might suffer from these consequences. And every enemy of freedom acts the same way. They direct it all the time, and unlimited money that they receive from trading with the free world to become corrupt and undermine democracy. But democracy must be able to act, and to act proactively. And that's why I'm right here with you right now giving the speech. And democracy, even in condition of total war against our people, maintains absolute internal unity. And winning is our national goal right now. And I'm very glad to discuss this topic right now here in US for several reasons. The US is a country of freedom and democracy. And that said, there has been concerns for several years about the status of democracy in the world, especially in more established democracies. And often freedoms are taken for granted, and democracies requires constant protection. So that is what's happening right now in Ukraine. Again, this is my city, pictures before and after the shelling. And this is more pictures of what was happening in Odessa. The business center was destroyed. The church was destroyed. 2 universities are partially destroyed. A residential building, the missile was launched right into it. And here also, children museum. This is another view of what was happening. This is a storage where they would store just some sodas, maybe you could see. And there was 3 people working that night at the storage, and unfortunately, they didn't survive. This is somebody's apartment. And down there is an interesting picture, if you can see water there. So around 2 weeks ago, Russia caused an ecocide in Ukraine. Why we call it like that? Because this dam was one of the main dams of Ukraine that would keep a big water flow. And it was destroyed by Russian missile. And right now, the part of the southern region is flooded. And a lot of animals and people have unfortunately died because of it. However, there are still works that is being done to protect people who are there. I have a lot of friends who are now there right in that territory, helping other people to get evacuated because it's mostly elderly and people with special needs. And also, one of more threats right now is a nuclear power plant in Ukraine that doesn't receive enough water because of that situation. So it's still a big threat, and we are still trying to fight with the consequences. And right now, I just want to say a few words from my personal experience and from how it all started. So as you can see on the picture here, there is a big flow of cars going that way and just a few cars going that way. That was when the war has started, and a lot of people were trying to leave cities of Ukraine. And there is also a grocery store with a lot of people there because people were not quite sure if they will have food supplies anytime sooner or not. Because around 2 weeks after the war started, Russia started shelling the roads where trucks with food were the roads that trucks with food would take to bring food to the stores. And my family actually still has this kind of a war storage, we call it, that has a lot of canned food. The food that would expire in 2 years or something. Big water bottles. Right now, actually, they're trying to drink with bottled water because of the dam that was ruined, because the water might not be the cleanest. And this is also the center of my city. The people would put sandbags around different historical monuments just in case to save them. And from my personal experience, when everything started, it was 5 a.m. in the morning. And I woke up because I heard some loud noises, explosions, and my parents were talking really, really loud, which we would never wake up at 5 a.m. so early. And I also heard TV going on really loud, and it was something about emergency news or something going on. So that's when I stood up and went to my parents and asked them, so what is going on? Why it's so loud and it's like 5 a.m.? So the phrase that I heard after have changed my life forever. The phrase was, the war has started. And after that phrase, my life was divided into two different parts. That's when the period of fear started, the period of panic has started. Sometime we were trying to leave Ukraine just right as soon as it started, but we didn't manage to. And we got to stay on the village right on the border. And thanks to the really nice people, we found a place to stay there. So in April, after several months of sleeping on the floor in the corridor because of the massive night shellings, and corridor is kind of the safest place in the house since it has two walls protecting you from the outside, me and my sister would stay there. We made a really hard decision. We made the decision to leave Ukraine, and me, my little sister, and my mother would leave the part of our family, our father, and just go in Bulgaria, where we lived for 3 months. However, after those 3 months, we decided to come back. And this decision was also one of the hard ones because we realized that there is no end that we can see to this war right now. Even though the fight is going on, even though it's all in active phase, we still cannot say for sure when it will all end. And spending time in the place where we don't have our own home, when my mother doesn't have her job, and when my sister cannot even talk with some peers properly, as it used to be back in Ukraine, it would be even more painful rather than staying there under Miss. So that's when we came back, and during fall, I left for my exchange semester in Austria. So right now, just for informational purposes, I would like to say a few words about the organizations that promote this democracy. And those organizations are United Nations Development Program, United Nations Democracy Fund, peacekeeping operations, Department of Political and Peace Building Affairs, Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and Entry for Gender Equality. Those are all organizations that we could address for democracy. I personally was in the United Nations office in New York, where we would talk with diplomats about overall democracy state in the world and Ukraine's fight. And those are the organizations that they would present to people. But what is democracy overall? And this is a question that I would like to ask audience. How do you understand democracy and how do you view it? If someone wants to answer just any word, it could be one word, what they associate with democracy.
Constitution.
Constitution, yes. Maybe a few more.
Community. Representation.
Representation.
Community.
Community.
Voice.
Voice.
Choice.
Choice.
Freedom.
Freedom.
For people. For people. For the people.
For the people. Yes. And I can say that everyone is right because every person views democracy personally, and for every person, democracy is something special. that they would view how they view it. And there are some basic elements of democracy that are just presented as the widely spread ones, and there is a lot of them actually. I wouldn't want to list all of them, just a few main ones. And respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms, freedom of assembly, right to freedom of opinion and expression. This is actually what we just talked about. Access and exercise of power in accordance with the rule of law. Holding free and fair elections. This is actually what we will talk about just in a few minutes. System of multiple political parties, separation of the branches of government, and transparency and accountability in the work of government bodies, and free, independent, and reflective media, which we can now address as the most common issue, especially during the propaganda times. So, democracy and what is it for me in this case? So I would highlight some points, which are the freedom of thought, holding their beliefs and opinions without fear, freedom to express these opinions openly, and it's also about the freedom of choice. And I would say that I was thinking a lot, what is it for me? And during the current situations and what I'm thinking, I could say that every person should be able to hold whatever beliefs are important to them. And at the same time, it's important not only to think freely, but also to be able to express those opinions and whatever those opinions might be. And if people are prohibited from discussing their views with other people or presenting them in the media, so how can they take part in the government? Because people are those who take part in the government. So if they're not allowed to express their opinion, if they're not allowed to say anything, if they're not allowed to participate in the free media, then how can they be the part of that government? And the freedom of voice allows you to discuss ideas with those who want it, to form different interest groups, and to form a common worldview. And perhaps such an activity is sometimes inconvenient for governments. However, it is important to take into account different points of view. And there are a lot of examples of governments that feel that it's kind of inconvenient for them to have people to express their thoughts freely. That's why they would implement big restrictions on people about expressing their own thoughts. And why are all they important to me is because they make it possible to build a free state, limit the abuse of power, and due to the opportunity to freely express one's opinions and know that my voice, the voice of everyone, will be heard. So, there are quite some threats to democracy. And if we talk about those threats, we can talk about the systematic crisis of Russian statehood possesses a significant threat to democracy. And the Russian political elite, it seeks to restore the Russian Empire and expand control and retake global supremacy, often at the cost of democratic principles. And it is vital to recognize and address the strategies employed by enemies of freedom that aim to weaken and undermine democracy. And there are also a lot of threats to democracy overall, such as propaganda, fakes, manipulations, and access to diverse sources of information that would help us to cure those threats. And one more question that I would like to ask everyone is: have you noticed any instances of threats to democracy in your own lives? Maybe you saw something on the news, maybe it happened in your own personal life. Just a few thoughts or ideas.
Skewed media.
Skewed media. Would you like to say a few words about it?
No,
Okay.
but I could. I think that in the United States, anyway, there's a growing feeling of separation of reality and what is being presented to us, and the doubt of it being real. I can't even imagine what the Ukrainians must hear from Russia or those other countries that are being impacted by totalitarian states. But even here, the media has become so overtly politicized, and it unfortunately serves our democracy very, very poorly. When you can't trust news, and it's as if we live in parallel universes. If you go to the alphabet information news media versus the more right-wing Foxes, it's as if you're living in parallel universes. The same piece of information is distorted equally to extremes, leaving Americans like myself very disconcerted and unsure of our future.
Thank you so much, and I can totally agree. And also that is what's happening right now between Russia and Ukraine. When the photos that I showed you before of the ruined buildings, they would say it's a military object in their news, or they would say that it never happened, or it was Ukraine who shoot themselves, which sounds a bit ridiculous for a lot of people. However, that's what is addressed to people who live in Russia. So this is a really common thing, and the one thing can be distorted several ways. So what I would like to continue with is Ukraine's struggle for democracy. And we all know that the war started in 2022. However, we address it as a full-scale invasion. And a lot of events have been going on before that. And the actual war has started in 2014, when eastern regions were occupied, such as also Crimea. And our way started even before that. And the first event that I want to address is the Orange Revolution in 2004. I was only 1 year old at the time. However, there were mass protests against election falsification that happened in Ukraine. And it was in the result, there was a more response from the government at the time because people showed their opinion about it. So what was happening is that at the time, there was two main candidates for the president election in Ukraine. And people would want to continue their development and growth course. However, the other politician decided that he has enough power, he has enough money to become the president of Ukraine without being fairly selected. And Ukrainian people said no to this situation and went out on different protests, as you can see here, to show their opinion and to show that they're supporting another person who wasn't chosen, even though it was mostly voted person. And that is what happened. The president that was falsified in this election, he had to leave. And then the other president took his place in our government. Revolution of Dignity, or how we would also call it in Ukraine, Maidan. This was happening in 2013. Actually, it started in November and ended already in 2014. So the Revolution of Dignity is a protest of citizens against the illegal crackdown on a peaceful action by students and public activists, which began on November 21 to 2013, and as a protest against the departure of the country's political leadership from the legally established course on European integration and the subsequent rejection of this course. So current president at that time decided, he was kind of a Putin's friend at that time. So we had a European integration course, which was one of the main courses that we were following because we would like to develop our country, we would like to develop our community, and we really aligned with the values that are presented by European Union, which is all the basic democratical values that I have already presented. So, president of the time decided that we would rather not continue following that path and just stick to our Eastern neighbors and their policies. And that's when young people and students went out to make protests, and they were roughly fought from the government and the military, which then led to more protests and to more activity on that side. So the war is still ongoing, and there are still threats to our values. And the war that is happening right now, this is what we would call a fight for freedom. And I would say that systemic crisis of Russian statehood possesses a significant threat to democracy, as I already said before. And these crazy ideas about restoring USSR, about restoring Russian Empire, are sometimes really scary because they would threaten not only Ukraine but also all other countries around here. And as we all know, the Russian government would go and decide to occupy a lot more countries rather than Ukraine. And countries were like Moldova, Georgia, and many more others would be affected. And now they're threatening Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, claiming that they're also their countries and they own them. So, defeating democracy together, this is an important aspect, and Ukraine's struggle for democracy serves a call for action. And democracy requires an unwavering stance against evil and an accomplishment commitment to its values. We should always discuss this topic. We should always be in this topic if we want to continue keeping it on the high and good level as it is right now. Because there is something, if we don't pay enough attention to, it can just flow away, as it was already said by Senator Leding. And I would like to show you a video about Ukrainians stopping Russian tanks with bare hands. This is what was happening when the invasion happened in 2022. And they would enter different villages in Ukraine, and people would just stop occupants with their bare hands.
Скорее всего, что будут возвращаться назад.
Техніки російської і нескінченна кількість, просто нескінченна. Вони вже ой-ой-ой, мужчина, що робить?
So, what we just saw before that, this is what was happening when everything started. And this was an awful experience, and people would try to fight for their homes, to fight for the places where they live, just jumping on tanks and trying to stop occupants this way. And after I continue to this topic, I just want to say a few things. The Russian regime has long been at war with democracies of the world, and it fights using disinformation, election meddling, espionage, exporting corruption, cybercrime, trying to provoke an energy crisis, which was happening in fall in Ukraine when all the energy stations were destroyed, and sometimes it was a bit scary when you cannot even contact your family because they don't have any connection there. And price explosions in the markets that can hit people with insane electricity or gas bills. And this is the way that they would fight. This is the way that they decided would be an efficient way. And this is where the threat to our values comes from. And this is why democracy is in danger. So right now, I would just say a few words about the program that I'm here right now. So why am I on this program? Why am I telling you all of that? And why do I feel like doing that? So Global Democracy Ambassador Scholarship Program. I applied for this program right when the war has started because it was supposed to help Ukrainian students to continue their studying, and because in Ukraine this is basically impossible right now in most of the parts. For example, my university would host online education. However, because air alarms would happen nearly every hour, they would switch off the online lecture and people would go to the safe place to hide. So why did I choose this program is because it helps to promote democracy and human rights on a global scale. As you can see, I'm here right now in front of you in ES sharing all this information, spread awareness about Ukraine's fight, because we all realize that at the start it's a big topic, and after some time passes by, less and less and less information is being reflected in the media, which is a bit of a sad thing, and that's why I'm here to share all of that with you. Opportunity to make a positive impact. I've always been the person who would love to share, who would love to make this impact in the society, and advocate for democratical principles and engage with diverse perspectives and cultures. And this has always been my passion. I've always been in this diverse society and I really enjoy it, and I would love to continue growing in it. So also a few words about my experience at the University of Arkansas. And what can I say, that learning environment here at the university is amazing and it's outstanding. And there are diverse academic opportunities, rewarding. This is for sure rewarding experience, and everybody here is really welcoming and supportive, and which was quite shocking for me because when people who I don't know would support me to the extent as if we've known each other for years already, that what was warming my heart. And I now have one more family here in Arkansas. We spend a lot of time together exploring each other's cultures, sharing important moments together, and creating unforgettable memories. This is through iFriend program. And this is just a few photos of us together with my international family, with one of the professors, which is Dr. Kelly, who is a professor here at U of A, but also has a really strong bonds with Ukraine. I was also part of the Upward Bound program International Night, where we would present about our countries. And just a photo of me in the Walton College of Business, because that's where I have most of my classes. So at the end, on behalf of Ukraine, I express deep gratitude to the democratic world for their support, in our fight for freedom. We stand united in preserving democratic values. And at the very end, I would just like to show a few pictures of me in a peaceful city where I come from. This is just the times right before war, how we would just spend time together walking around. And thank you everyone, or how I would say in Ukrainian, дякую. And I would just want to say a few thanks for support and organization to some people. So I would like to thank Senator Greg Leding for being present and giving this speech. I would like to thank Global Democracy Ambassador Scholarship. I would like to thank Namiko Bagirimvano, Cassandra Thomas, Christopher Kelly, Cynthia Jane Smith, Natalia Chapovska, Trevor Dane, Josephine Simon, Drydale, Greta Clark, Nathan Hubert, Heather Will and William Schmidt, Colton Lone, the Stasi family, Yulia Bondareva and her son Mikita, Marina and girls Vesnana and Uliana, Mrs. Irene, Oksana, Tessa, and also housing Global Series international students and scholars, sponsor students and special programs, and hugs from friends. Дякую.
Thank you so much, Anna. Let's give her another round of applause. So before we get into a discussion and a Q&A, one thing that we like to do for our presenters for Global Series is give them this pin. So there you go.
Thank you.
And then I also have one for Senator Leding. But now I will turn it back over to Anna and Senator Leding for a discussion and Q&A with the audience.
So if anyone has any questions concerning anything, democracy, Ukraine, if they're just curious about something or didn't understand something that was said before, you can go ahead and ask them. Yes, please.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the Orange Revolution and the development of the new democracy in Ukraine.
Yes, so Orange Revolution is an event that happened in 2004, and it was, as we would like to say, one of the first steps towards our democracy building and expressing our own opinions and views. And I would say that at that time, there was a major election between two candidates, and one of the candidates falsificated the whole election to make it look as if he is the one who is supposed to be selected. However, the other candidate, whose surname is Yushchenko, was the one that people of my country wanted to select as a person because he would be more democratic. He would rather talk about our development. So that's when the peaceful protests were there in order to support the other candidate and to show that this election was not real. And this is actually one of our first steps because it showed the government that we are ready to fight, that we are ready to express our opinion, that we are ready to show what we think. Thank you. If there are any more questions, yes.
Throughout this lecture, both of you guys kind of talked about how fragile democracy is and how it can kind of vanish at any moment before your eyes. Based on maybe your leadership experience and your background, what do you guys think, kind of an open-ended question, what do you guys think are like, signs that like your democracy is like tilting towards tyranny, maybe?
I think when systems become too lopsided and they favor one group of people far too much, that they completely disregard the needs and interests of others, that's not good. And unfortunately, again, here in our state government, the way it's worked throughout most of our history, we've been under one party control for basically all but like a 2-year period. And again, I thought that was a very productive period, and we did a lot of good things. And outside of that, we've generally tended to favor just one group of people. And I think you've got to do more there have to be checks in your democracy in order to help bring some balance to the system. Because if you get out of balance, it's like, I don't know, if you have your washing machine and the load gets out of balance and it starts jumping around and doing crazy things. I feel like that's what's happening right now with our state government.
Yes, thank you.
There has been presented information or pseudo information about the level of corruption in the Ukrainian government immediately before the invasion from Russia. As a Ukrainian, you can give us a much more candid personal impression as to nothing is perfect, and certainly we're not perfect here by any means, but what your impression of the relative levels of corruption or absence of corruption in the Ukrainian government before the invasion?
So I can say that right before an invasion, the levels of democracy, of corruption were still not low. So it has been a long time ago that we had a high level of corruption in our country. However, when we started the European integration course, this was one of the main things that we would have to reduce to become a part of the European Union. And that's when we started working on it. So right before the invasion, overall statistically, the level wasn't that high as it used to be before, because it's a process that we were working right now, but right before the invasion happened. And if we give a brief look into what is happening right now, as we are already candidates for European Union, this is actually also the second point of what we're supposed not to have. The first one is when the war ends. The second one is to have zero corruption. And we can clearly see right now that all the resources are being used efficiently. And what is happening right now is way better than it used to be, if you, for example, say 20 years ago. So if that answers your question.
The second half of that is, do you think that structurally, the fact that your legislative system is a unicameral system, does that influence the level of corruption or the potential for it as compared to, for instance, what we have here?
What I believe that it doesn't have that high influence for several reasons, because actually I would say if there is a will and if there is a slightest opportunity, then the crime of corruption would be caused. And this is the thing that lays more in the mentality of people, in their belief and what they think about and how honest they are. So I believe that even if the system is changed, even if it's different, it wouldn't give such a big influence. Rather, just the understanding of people, how it's happening right now. The community is changing, the beliefs are changing, and that's why corruption levels are reducing. Thank you.
Alexis de Tocqueville was a French historian that visited America in the 1830s, and he said one of the strengths of American democracy was that we were a nation of joiners. Maybe we could call that civil society, when people kind of come together, have an independent voice to influence the government. Maybe Russia and Ukraine's major difference in historical sociology has been that Russia has destroyed its civil society, whereas Ukraine, maybe from its Cossack roots and kind of from having this kind of early, nature, has had this civil society. So my question is actually, about Odessa and growing up in Odessa. What are some examples of civil society that you got to see in Odessa? Maybe even some examples that we don't have in Arkansas of how neighborhoods or citizens come together just on their own.
So about unity in the societies overall also.
What are some examples in Odessa that you experienced of people coming together independently to just help each other out?
So actually there are a lot of examples. The main thing about my city is that we have a lot of different yards. So there are residential buildings that would have their own yards, and mostly in the city center is like really old yards where people actually, different families are living there. However, they all living as the same family. And this is a really common thing in the old areas of the city. So that would happen that they would, for example, all decide that they want to put a small playground there, or they would rather try and fix some part of their yard, and then they would work on it together. Also, for example, how it would happen to me personally, in my house, people would always have a group chat, for example, and we would always talk through how we could help each other, what is happening. And after the invasion has started, so as I said, I was volunteering. So when there was a big flow of people from different cities of Ukraine coming to Odessa, because it used to be more safe rather than it's now. And those people were just running away. They had no clothes, basically nothing. Some of them were lucky to have their passport and some money on them. So we would make special communities and special places where we would collect all the needed supplies for those people there, like people who live in the city. And that's what I also would do. We would pack a lot of stuff to send, for example, to cities. So there is a neighbor city called Mykolaiv, where they had no water supply because of the severe shelling. We would also all gather together to collect those water supplies to send there. So this is just a few examples.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, earlier you asked for examples we have seen that have been threats to democracy. And I just wanted to add on to that. I have experienced people sabotaging others just for the benefit of themselves, right? So how does that relate to oligarchs and ultimately catering to the ultra rich and corruption?
So when you say sabotaging others, can you elaborate just a little bit? Making it more difficult for them to participate in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
And so,
in society.
And so how does that relate to?
Basically, it eliminates the competition, right? So
Right.
It's taking out another community member, much like I would say Russia is trying to do with Ukraine to gain control over the area. And I think that a lot of corruption is rooted in kind of capitalism and catering to the ultra rich in many situations.
I think we could list any number of examples here in our own country. I would say, speaking from, I guess, the legislative standpoint, certainly there has been corruption there. I've been in office now for 12 years, and during that time, there was a Democratic state treasurer who resigned because of scandal, a Republican lieutenant governor who resigned because of scandal. I literally just counted it up in my head a couple minutes ago. I've had 4, maybe 5 legislative colleagues from both parties go to prison because of scandal. So it certainly has happened, and it's just the last 12 years. Again, just both parties. But one thing in terms of sabotaging other people's ability to participate, you have also unfortunately seen just in this last session and in recent sessions, attempts to make it more difficult for people to participate in the electoral process, whether it's by putting more restrictions on on the voting process, but also making it more difficult for citizens to pursue changes through the ballot box. Making it increasing the threshold for the number of signatures the citizens have to gather to put something on the ballot box, because the party in charge right now has decided that the legislature needs to be the only body that's capable of deciding policy in this state. And so they're just making it more difficult for citizens to participate. And I think that's unfortunate because that kind of system isn't partisan. I mean, I have seen both conservative and liberal policy pass through the ballot box. And I think that the people have the right to put policies in front of everybody for us to decide on, and that the legislature shouldn't be the only branch.
So we have one more question left. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. I have a question for both of you. If you could give us a definition of democracy, and do you think democracy is important for everybody? Because we know that a lot of countries suffer for getting democracy because one size does not fit all. So if you could just elaborate on that and give us your opinion about democracy, that would be great. Did you get my question?
Yes. So explain what is democracy, elaborate.
Definition, yes.
Okay.
What do you think democracy is? Because you asked us what democracy is.
Mhm.
Okay. What do you think democracy is?
So I believe that democracy is an important instrument that can be used by big groups of people. And this instrument allows a lot of people to be in charge in their own country, to have their own opinion, to have their own thoughts and their own beliefs, to have their own rights and advocate for them. And this is what is important, and I believe this is basically the human needs to be able to do all of that. So I believe this is what is democracy in my understanding, and that's how I would explain it to the people. Do you have any other things to add about it?
Thanks, I really did a great job. I think my definition of democracy would just be everyone in a community actively engaged in the act of governing that community. Everybody's got to play a role, whether it's just making sure that you're an informed voter, you're a poll watcher, you're running for office. Filing opens November 6th this year, by the way, if anybody's thinking about running. But everybody has to be an active participant. It can't just be something that you choose to let happen.
So I would like to thank you all again. We are running out of time. So this is the end of our Q&A session, but we also have a few more words from another organization that we would like to present to you, and then we would be able to head out and try some Ukrainian food. Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much. My name is Trevor Dane, and I'm a co-founder of a nonprofit based right here in Bentonville, or right here in Northwest Arkansas, called Hugs from Friends. And our mission is to encourage kids across the country, particularly here in Arkansas, to create cards and artwork and messages of support and solidarity to kids in Ukraine. And then we take that artwork and we send it to schools and community organizations over there to show some support and solidarity. So, friends, we are honored to be here this evening. We are honored to represent the community. Anna, thank you so much. We are honored to support you. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for your courage and your bravery. It inspires us. And most important, I think, is you so eloquently talked about tonight why it is so critical and important for the people of Arkansas and the people of the United States to stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Ukraine for as long as it takes for Ukraine to win. And so thank you for including us. Thank you so much also to Nami and Cynthia from the university for including us. We are just here to say that the community supports you. I invite you all to stop by our table out there to learn a little bit more about Hugs from Friends. We have some examples of art that has been created here and by the Arkansas Arts Academy for students in Ukraine that we're going to send over there. We've also have some examples of art that we've received back from kids in Ukraine that shows their thankfulness and their support for us. So very, very powerful. I would also invite you to, there's an art making station out there. So if you feel inspired, any art that we make this evening will go to a school in Odessa. And the last thing I'll kind of share with you this evening is, we make the art, but what does it mean to the people that receive it, right? That is kind of and I'll read you one quote from a letter that we received back from a student named Rostlav. I don't know his age, but we received a picture of him, and he's a young man. And he said to us, "I want to thank you for not turning away from the great and terrible calamity in my country. I am proud of you because your support, mutual understanding, help, kind words, and sincere open heart give us strength and a faith for a happy future. You are our friends." Friends, that's why we do this. And then I would also like to say, if this is something that inspires you, if this is something that a cause that you want to participate in, we're always looking for partners. We're happy to partner with student groups, classes, schools, and all that. So happy to talk to you out there. And I'll turn it over to Natalia, who's also here with the Ukrainians of Northwest Arkansas.
Thank you, Trevor. Good evening. My name is Natalia Chapovska. I'm a proud alumni of Sam Walton College of Business. I'm also a Mosky Fellow. I was a student here in 2013, and actually one time, I will tell you a secret, don't tell anyone, I was doing a presentation here about Poland because they didn't have enough students, and my Polish friends, there were two of them, asked me to come over and help me. And I never thought that I will do some talking and some help tonight. So it's an honor to be here. And Anna, I know what it is to be a student, and I truly when you said that you're going to do a presentation. As a student who did some presentations before, and I know how it's important to have help from the side. It was thank you for letting us to help you, and thank you for doing this this important presentation today. Also, I live here in Arkansas, and today we made the most. We presented our cultures. When you will go, you will exit from this room, you will see a lot of tables with Ukrainian. You will see how rich Ukrainian culture is. And with Ukrainians of Arkansas, there's a couple of them. Can you wave? Yeah, thank you. We made for you some food that we would like to share, and this food includes borscht. Have you ever tried borscht? Well, today is the chance. So you will have borscht. It's a traditional, it's more than just a soup. When you eat it, think about the rainbow. Even though it's red, but when you will see white potato, you will see orange carrots, you will see a lot of ingredients, and you can ask us afterwards what the ingredients are. Google and find. It's a fun, very fun dish. And besides that, we made a lot of vareniki. Vareniki, it's a family tradition. People get together and they make vareniki. So we get with Ukrainians who live in Arkansas, and they are sitting Uliana Vesnyan, and a lot of kids, and they were making vareniki, and it was truly brought us joy that we can share some traditions with you. Then we made compote. Compote, it's a French word for, it's a summer drink. It's a mix of different fruits. And we also made tarte perich. It's just a pie, a grated pie with jam, and it tastes like victory. So when you taste it, think about the Ukrainian will win this war, and we will have another celebration. And one thing that I haven't mentioned, but I was planning to say that when Stalin died in 1953, all across the United States we have a big diaspora all restaurants served borscht, this rainbow soup, for free. So just hopefully you will taste borscht and the war will be over. Thank you very much. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, the University of Arkansas.
Thank you so much. This has been a fantastic start to our global series for this upcoming school year. Feel free to follow our social medias at UARC Global Series for future Global Series events. But now we will open the floor for food. We do encourage you to stop by the tables outside, but to get to the food, we'll have you go out these 3 arches and head towards the back. We'll have Clark back there help direct. But yeah, everybody enjoy. Thank you so much for coming.
So you were in the Neto. Yeah, that's. I remember this. Yeah. So we were here. Yeah. Wow. I studied.
This is actually a really important program. We have already given yes, and my ultimate
Like the listening is like so like 1 mile. They would try to make and every time they would tell their kind of more about what's going on in then try to experience they're my friends. So, and it would be really depressing. They just such strong
Sure. It's very naive. I would like to go back. I don't know.
I'm sorry for
No, no, it's okay.
Of course. I said, I was looking. Good to see you. Did you really think of that? Oh, you know this? Yeah, so you just came from London? Yeah. Oh, so from. I just because I was uninterested. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we work in the same place. Yeah. Yes. So basically, for you, one day I will go and do my principal analysis. For sure.
You also staff person?
No, I'm doing my I think it's already.
I just finished undergraduate. So I'll be grad school. Well, I finished computer science, so I'll be in computer engineering.
Just 1 minute.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, doctorate. I was Thank you very much. Yes.
Sometimes we do stuff.
Yeah, you usually want to so we're lit.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, so he finished undergraduate studies. He and I were the same year.
Where will be?
So we finding together. You know, if he graduated, he's going to this is from the University of Texas at Austin.
Yeah, I could try both as well.
Yeah.
I just declined it. Thank you.
I just came, yep. Yeah. I wanted Yeah, how are you?
Maybe another yeah.
Why don't you guys rent a place? You guys come to Holcombe Hall?
Sometimes. I don't know where that's supposed to be. So I was supposed to be here early, but we have it now. Yep. Oh, yeah, we have it.
Always together. I was cute.
So we are our last meeting.
Ukraine.
We're invited. Vermont has invited us to go to Ukraine.
Kendall.
Hey.
My man, yeah, I saw you going, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good, man.
Yeah, same does. Yeah. You know, Mustafa, my new Iraqi friend. Good to see you. Yeah, and Kendall.
Kendall, I remember you now. Do you remember me?
Yeah. Okay, wait. What's up?
How you doing?
Yeah, yes.
I feel like I met you at the.
Yeah.
I go back.
I recognize you.
I had another question.
I know.
I know. We have someone else that does.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I just came and sat down. I'm like, why is this guy up to suit right now? Like, overdressing.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Yes. That's my video.
Okay, so
So that can ride.
Yeah, I've been studying. I'm not right. One of the
How are you like doing this thing apart? Like I always say,
So yeah. And
for me, I'm just
in the city office and the number two casino.
but I'm trying to grow up in
We got together.
He's got to be jobless. Can't keep his job. So that's what I've been doing. I had a couple of really good
Campground last Sunday. I talked to and just had a list of national businesses that are looking at the Western market are starting back in conditional use permit. Working history operating business. And they decided that it just needs to be a business that's setting up tents. It's like kind of operating a campground. So then I said,
You're just your second, third semester.
second year. I'm about to start my second year.
because I have
There's this opportunity.
previously to since 2010. We're not charging money.
For me, after my math science,
He's actually Jesse Russell to shoot. That's
it's affiliated with the Oak Ridge National
Jeremy Priestley's
And you see Oppenheimer, you're going to hear that name because originally it was
there was somebody in between.
Was it good? I'm going to see this here.
For a change in policy. And so I said, well,
I was really, really I was pretty well with him. I was like,
so
You should have known. I heard it's very good. Oppenheimer was the man who developed the atomic bomb. Yeah.
So anyway.
Albert Einstein and Albert Einstein together. Very smart, very dangerous. Maybe the worst invention. By the way, even though some footage he used to be in both. I'll come in a little, okay? Yeah.
So I represented and some were pretty favorable, some were really easy. Jonathan presents for and so it ended up being 3 orders, the third of which was and he was presenting the ability to have in-camping
That sounds really cool.
So I said, they took that voted on it May 2nd.
Listen, it's not just CPC.
So I said, and I told Brian ahead of time when it passed.
Mainly about
July 10th. Because the planners recommended some of the conditions that they had like in the ordinance. They sent me to the prosecutor in December since then. Just to eventually control it.
What's the group?
I have a court date September 27th. It's a zoning, yeah. So anyway, better for me the section times. It's docile offer. His junior partner, Alex, just taking this piece. And Alex said, yeah, I need to see this professional.
I hope you get it, man. Your energy's unmatched. Do you think Rich is he's scheduled 3 for something.
If I get it all the way.
So we might, yeah. So minimum you're moving. Yeah, for sure.
There's some question.
Well, we were talking with our friend here, and I think they have.
Yeah, no, and every time that there's been a city meeting, I've been so far to discuss this. Every time they get asked where it's supposed to go. And there was no. So anyway, that's pretty much the short version. If you want details, I can fill you in for a couple hours. Hope they have not said that. I'm hoping that, and I've told people that they need to leave. And it was 1 or 2 occasions. Homeless population exploded. And so it became 3 or 4 or 6 or 8 and 12 in most of the last 2 years. And so I'm sure it's a bit of a busy already. There's a couple of years that have plans.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, newsletters, and they're quite open. I don't know if you guys, you write your newsletter. Anyway, you know what to say.
I usually start on the other side.
Okay.
Still, usually always find myself scrambling.
Yeah, well, okay, so people read those things, I read those things, and it's, you talk about like getting engaged in the process. Your newsletter is pretty much the only way that I get this because I don't get, I mean, I have a lot of great news organizations, but they don't really cover out what's going on in there.
They're not always like, you know, on the right place.
Yeah.
Necessarily because try to be like careful with it. Share too much.
Very good. I appreciate your take on things too. It's really good writing. I used to be in nonprofit, and I just finished my master's here today. Part of class projects really get this process that just happened. I feel like there's going to be a lawsuit, or maybe there is a lawsuit. Right. Well, maybe it's kind of like, yeah.
I don't know how much. When they get to see honestly, they're saying,
yeah.
They definitely probably strengthen their positions. I do think the second district was the most
Here,
I do think the next district.
I'd love to work on that. That's awesome. Just whatever. I mean, I was actually a good friend. Well, David Godfrey and I went to get undergrad in the same class. Yeah. And Jenny Diaz got a good talk. But I didn't want to say, hey, what can I do? Because I don't know, you're having a constituent get together. It's been a while. I don't know, maybe I can talk to you more there and just see what's yeah, I'd love to. I mean, yeah, like I managed a couple of years in the census day, and to see how easily stuff can go through in charge of decisions. I know Maria, who was in charge of it, she was really the best in us. So sometimes there's stuff you can't. Yeah, it's hard. No, yeah.
The shouting party beats the.
I didn't know who you were. I just walked in and see there's a man in a suit sitting next to me. I'm like, what else?
I generally you never like gets the chance to be there. My friend is speaking of people. She's actually Tanika Rosito is part of the groups. I can't pronounce it. It's funny. He's from
my friends are from Iraq. I'm sorry, I couldn't come on time, but and I told you about this said he's from Ukraine.
I don't want to keep you from talking to you.
Well, that's fine.
You have to run.
Yeah, he's from Ukraine, and we have two more, let's say.
So you need to come on yourself.
My name's Holcombe.
Yes, I meet you. You guys. Yeah.
I just know.
We'd like to
but I was telling him when I was maybe 16, I went to. Oh.
I just wanted to say I really enjoyed your presentation. I used to host students from Ukraine and Russia in our house, so
You know, earlier this year, we had for
about
70 to 74%.
and I don't have contact with students anymore. I used to.
From our side, we view them as totally wrong.
Korea.
The Russians were very, very strong.
They used to call me every year, and she would say, every holiday, I love you.
I feel like in America, I'm not saying it's bad at all.
3.5 weeks.
There's a very huge kind of
We had a ball every time she was there. She always wanted me to wear more makeup. And before she left, I told her, I said, I'm beginning to look like a floozy. Red lipstick. But anyway, we have a lot of fun. And I had one student one year who spoke no English, and I spoke no Russian, that was from Russia. And we played charades all week, and we understood everything everybody did to each other, so we had a blast.
Oh yeah, I was telling I went to Ukraine or Kiev in 2016, and I was just there for a little while. But you know the picture of the statue, the big one, or yeah, the big statue in the slideshow. Is it like this or like this? I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, I cannot remember. But yeah. Right. Yes. Yeah. I went there with my father and my sister. It's a beautiful country.
What did you bring? What brought you to?
I'm just visiting, seeing some friends there and meeting. You know,
It shares me that.
I think it's near Kiev, maybe 1-2 hour drive. But we were visiting there. Have you heard of Ukraine's House or Ukraine International? Some organization. So it's working but it was really good. I really like the country. So I would like to go back someday. But yeah. Yeah, thank you. It was very good. Yeah, of course.
Презентації можуть подаватися презентація цей 8 буде. Тоді це вони згадку України була кращим роком. Часто питають вони собі спайте, напевно. Маєте досвід напевно, багато хто питає, де спілкуються. Це проблема
найпопулярніше питання.
відповісти, щоб
Не знаю, мені здається,
ні, дуже добре. Можна, напевно, що так, моя думка, то, що я помітив, що здається дуже багато таких корупціонерів, вони як в Росії, вони якби теж були, Росія це Ні, це просто...
Я знаю.
Це я нічого не хочу.
Ти тут навчаєшся?
Працюю, хочу працювати тільки. Навчався в Києві.
So, Anna, I'll talk to you later on, okay? And send me anything you find for the online recording. I need to see your presentation. Good job. And this is my new friend. He is from Ukraine. Sir. Okay, thank you. Oh my goodness. Both of us we have work. Yeah, good to show. One time I need to just do it, right? But yeah, she's going to stay here, I think, right? Going to stay here for a long time or here or in Arkansas or Wisconsin? But yeah, we'll be in touch, okay? Yeah.
Someone was asking about this revolution. I wasn't very specific. I was really wanting to share a little bit about what happened before the first election, what the uprising was, and
You're leaving?
I've been studying uprisings that resulted around the world. And, in particular, I've been to Tunisia after the Arab Spring when they had their new democracy.
Really? Великі Петрівці?
One in particular, a guy named Ziza, before the Arab Spring, he went to meet some of the organizers of the races in Ukraine to say, hey, what did you do? How did you make it happen? What worked, what didn't work, what do you do different? And so he went for a learning expedition to Ukraine.
Driving 1 hour, 2 hours.
To Tunisia to have a successful uprising after the Arab Spring. Tunisia's kind of a backslid. Ukraine had a time when they were kind of selling into
Very nice.
You like Tunisia will come back and
Remind you of oh really? Yeah.
all democracies in the United States. A lot of is a major issue.
No.
Yeah.
Because you're going to hear
up there.
A little bit slower.
Yeah, this is why he was like taking Mike. This is why he wasn't just like taking Mike.
Are there people who are known to be organizers of revolution that are held in high esteem in Ukraine? It's like Tunisia, there's two people that stand out and I have to invite both of them. One is Aziz and the other.
They're stealing things.
She was the public face of the
Dig it in there. Dig it in
where Aziz was coming told me that he's seen us working on things.
All these people come in, all the work for
So the transition.
Yes. You apply for that thing that you have. You look at from the world.
You said it right now.
Like you said, Nina was the public face. Everybody knew her. She died years ago. She was a young during that time. She had catch up and died which was really sad. Sure. This kind of one of the family members of the was very well known. Both of them did not see.
Just you're in a picture.
Not positions outside for saying, this is where it's not going right. You just better, trying to make people aware. Yeah, it was very good to go to Tunisia, and I really appreciate sharing here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. It would be nice to travel more to other countries and talk to people. Before things get too old. It's been almost 20 years now. So, I'm sure some of the organizers are it's an important record. Just trying to make a record of who was being led and what we're doing, and just tell them the story of the uprising. It's an important story. I guess particularly here in the United States, we fought a war with Britain to become a free democratic country, and so we have this idea in our head that if you want to be a free democratic country, you have to fight war. And most of the democracies, particularly since World War II, came about through nonviolent uprisings. It's important to this was in the United States, that there's an alternate path that works.
Maybe some of them will get. Oh, okay.
Did you end it? I was scared to end it. I don't. Let's see if anybody's still.